right, so I wanted to come full circle. I don't know if you remember, we were here, well obviously you remember that. We were here September, and we were all taking turns going around on the mic, and honestly I probably spent more time thinking about what I was going to say and my anxiety than listening to all of you. But I knew this is an incredibly impressive group of people. And one of the biggest things that stood out for me was, well, obviously, the context that day. For many of us, it was our first time out of COVID in a big group of people. The verdict of Breonna Taylor that the police officers had shot or would not be charged was the day before. And I think it really set the context for us about the different inequities and the different emotional impacts of the racial history, and how all of us were coming to this group with different experiences. I remember at that time, so the equation, we talked about the trust equation, which I'm going to remind you what it is. So it's trust equals credibility, reliability, intimacy over self-orientation. And credibility really rung true to me, because even though I had leadership experiences coming into this program, I don't think I really trusted my credibility. And I can give you a few reasons why, and I'm sure you have your own reasons. One, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a business major in engineering. My master's degree is in creative writing. Yes. Two, yes. I don't really have that presence of authority. I'm a petite woman. And I can tell you, this happens like once a week. Somebody comes up to me and is like, I thought you were right out of college. And so when we got to credibility, I stepped to the mic and I said, how do I establish credibility? And there was different answers. Like, first of all, it's already established as your LinkedIn profile. It's like what people know about you. Someone else threw out there, credibility in their industry is your life experience, is what you bring to the table. And then Claire, probably trying to be helpful, said, it's your presence. And I was like, oh shit, I'm shaking at the mic. And so I came out of that with thinking, okay, how do I fix this credibility problem? So my first was, oh, I should get an MBA. Then I thought to myself, okay, I gotta get better at public speaking. That's why I'm up here. And then my third was, maybe, just maybe, I've been getting in my own way because my definition of credibility is wrong. And so I decided to lean into that, and really that was my challenge here. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of background about how I got into public transit advocacy. At the time, so back before Bridge Builders, it was in fall of 2019. There was a summit hosted called Cleveland Summit Rising. So it was hosted by the county executive, several leaders in town, philanthropists, and they wanted everybody from Cleveland, from all different experiences, to come in and help solve some of Cleveland's greatest problems. And so I was one of Ursula College's representatives. And just to give you a little background about Ursula College. So Ursula College is the only women's college in Ohio, probably in the Midwest region. It was founded 150 years ago by the Ursuline Sisters of Cleveland. And it was founded to provide access of education to everybody who wanted it. And then it was also founded on a mission of social justice. So I showed up to public auditorium, and 600 people, big crowd. And all around the room were these giant post-it notes with these huge problems. So there was education, there was environment, there was access to the internet. And I chose public transit. I wasn't an expert in any of these areas. Why I picked public transit was because, one, I knew that Ursula College recently had their bus stop taken away. So we have students who the closest bus stop is 2 miles away. And then, so they have to walk over the bridge over 271 and then to campus. And then there's no sidewalks. So like snowy days, they're walking in the road. And then the second is that in my experience, I know that I would not be where I am today because of public transit. I know that in college, I relied on public transit. I know as like a young professional that that's the only way I could get around. It was like with a low-wage job, I needed affordable transit. And so it was when I came to Cleveland, I tried using transit, but honestly, I needed a car. And so I decided that was one of the big issues that I was going to focus on. So now I'm going to look at my notes here. Okay, so I leaned into that because one thing that I learned as an advocate is you just got to pick one thing. There's so many issues out there, and all of us are going to pick different things, but you just got to pick one thing and just focus on it. Like I always think about it, like when you're, I don't know if you've ever hiked the Grand Canyon, there's those donkeys or mules. And so the mules, they have these blinders on, so they can't see the whole distance of the Grand Canyon. They don't get distracted, they just go, okay, here's the next point I'm going to walk to, and then we're going to make the turn, and then here's the next point. And so I put those blinders on, and I focused through this builder's experience with your help on making some of these next steps. So I did my vision stance, tried to get over my public speaking. When I found out that the governor was going to cut public transit budget by 90%, I said, okay, you guys might not care about public transit, but I'm going to just do a call to action anyway. And so I sent that email out, and you went, thank you for responding, and thank you for everybody who did make phone calls. On my one-on-ones, we had a lot of conversations about, I was talking about the RTA board and how we really needed rider representation, but it's really a problem throughout Cleveland, that you need the people who are affected by decisions to be part of the decision making. And then this magical moment happened where I was in one of my volunteer meetings and I saw Roberta on the Zoom call, and Roberta was being nominated for the RTA board. And so I said, let's talk. And we came up with a strategy plan. And she did her part and I did my part, and I pulled out what I thought was, the magic ticket I could do. I emailed to the county executive and said, this all started when you had this Cleveland Summit Rising conference. I've been feeding this fire for free public transit ever since. And one of our calls to action was to have someone on the board. It's in your hands. And I did a lot nicer for that. And you know what? It worked. And so through this experience, I really feel like I've solved my credibility problem. And it was a problem that I had. And I want to say it's really thanks to you, because knowing that 60 plus people who I deeply admire have been there and supportive of me and curious, that makes a really big deal. So whenever there's that tiny little voice that says, you're not good enough or you can't do it, well, I got 60 other voices telling that tiny little voice it's wrong. So even though I don't have my credibility problem, I still think Cleveland has a credibility problem. And I've heard this in conversations over and over again. Cleveland, I've heard it described, I think it was Larry, Cleveland's like a suit and tie. It's meals at the Union Club to have meetings. Cleveland has hierarchies. And honestly, if the only way that we're going to confront inequities is that we have to challenge those hierarchies. Right now, because of COVID, we're all aching to go back to normal. But you know what? Normal didn't work. Normal reinforced the inequities that exist today. And so I have a call to action, because that's how I end all these things. So I want some things that I noticed in my own leadership experience that you guys did to support me. I want you to be part of this change of challenging the credibility. So here's my first one. I want you to approach everybody assuming expertise. I work at a college. I believe degrees are important, but I also know that people have different starting points. And where you come from, that can affect if you think you can afford college. It can affect, based on your role models, what degrees you pursue. And it can affect your life circumstances if you even finish college. So we have to, college and degrees are important, but just as important as life experiences. And so I think as leaders, it is our job to hone in on everybody in front of us, figure out what is that expertise they're bringing, to support them in it, and then to figure out what is the information they have that we don't have so we can make better decisions. Building off of that, the same as the RTA, I think we need to change who has a seat at the table. So that happens, and I'm talking about in your work meetings, I'm talking about in the volunteer capacity. And it's not, I feel like Cleveland, we approach it, we have hierarchies. We approach it as a, like there's limited capacity of who can have that seat. And we work so hard to earn that seat. But if you don't have more voices at that table as part of the conversation, then you're not actually making the best decisions. And so what we have to do is we have to promote people who we think, we have to tell those people the same as people have told me, I think you should step up. And then if someone tells you to step up, you gotta listen. So we need to promote people to the table, and then we need them to actually have the conversation. And then my third ask is that, you have to look at my phrase. We're part of a positive feedback loop. So, when you shake things up, things get shaky. It's not easy. So when you help people and you put them at the table, you're putting them in a difficult position. Like, people don't like change. That's just the way it is. And I'm sure you've seen it, where sometimes people get promoted into a situation and there's a little bit of a backlash against them. So what we have to do is we have to double down in telling people what they're good at. We have to double down telling people we have their back. We have to double down just being that gentle, quiet voice. And if there is an equity or something that you need to challenge someone, we have to do it. We can't rely on someone else to do it. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your support of me. And I really look forward to what comes next with all of us together making this change.